Hi, Jed from Cook Culture. So today I wanted to talk to you about simple knife maintenance. So maintaining a knife is super critical, and unfortunately it's something that most of our customers and most people I talk to either don't know how to do well or just don't do well because of time and effort and energy and so on and so forth. But what it comes down to is that a knife is going to work so well for a good amount of time if it's maintained well. If you buy a cheap knife or an expensive knife, whatever have you, take it home, just start using it and don't maintain it at home, it will degrade fairly quickly and be kind of crappy. And you can go and spend a couple hundred bones on a great knife, and within days even, it can start to degrade and it can feel like a bad investment. So the point of today is to talk about how we maintain a knife once you've bought it before you get it sharpened. And in the period between sharpening a knife, where you take it to somewhere and they grind the blade, and from when you bought it, you need to hone it. You maintain it, and it's called honing. So the sharpening of knife, and underneath sharpening is honing, and then grinding or sharpening through a way of grinding on like a wheel of some sort. Or you can use a stone also. There's other manual ways of doing it. But the point of what I'm talking about today is how we maintain your knife using some sort of a tool to keep a sharp blade sharp. So first, what I'll explain is that when you have a blade, here we have a Western blade and we have a Japanese blade. So people either at home have a Western style blade or they have a Japanese style blade. And the big difference between these two is the way in which the blades work or are made. So you've got a bevel on your blade, like so. And on a Japanese blade, that bevel is going to be thinner. So not a lot of difference, and there's your sharp point, there's your sharp point. But you've got more of a wedge on a Western and less of a wedge on a Japanese. So the Western, being that there's more material, more of a wedge, will make for it'll make for a stronger knife. The Japanese, that is thinner, that can create even more of a pinpoint to it, is a little more fragile. There's more thin material on the end, and it has a tendency to round at the end or chip or get damaged more quickly and more easily than a Western. So Western are very durable, Japanese are less durable. Japanese are sharper by feel than Western typically. This is not absolute, but typically. So that's why some people choose Japanese over Western. We sell more Japanese than we do Western because of the sharpness factor. They also can be more beautiful sometimes depending on brands, but mostly when you're doing soft protein or vegetables using a Japanese knife, it's sharper and it feels better to use. However, what happens with that, this point here on the end of the bevel of the knife can become rounded or damaged very easily off of regular use. So what I mean by that is that when you're chopping using a knife and you're cutting on a board and you start chopping so loud that you're waking up the neighbors, what you're doing is taking this very soft pinpoint of an edge and you're basically just crumpling it or rounding it off. You're damaging it very easily. So the sharper this knife, the more fresh sharpness, the easier it is to damage that edge. The other thing that people do that is horrible, but it happens all the time, and I can even be guilty once in a while, is pulling your food towards you. So cleaning your board, getting all your food, using your knife, using the sharp side of your knife and not using what you should be doing from using the spine of your knife, what that will do is just completely round your knife edge, right? So now you've got a knife that can be either impacted, bent over, or completely round, and it's a week old. And what happens is you go to cut into an onion or a tomato, and you either slide right off of it, or it just doesn't pierce anymore. And you're like, hey, I just spent a bunch of money on this great knife and it's really not working. It's like going and buying a Ferrari and in a week it's sputtering and hiccuping, right? It's like, well, why? Like, why is it not working? You put the wrong gas in it, you didn't maintain it. So this is normal use. doing all these things. You know, I'm not saying to you, you should never pull your food towards you. People do that. So that's regular use. Best not to, try not to, but it is regular use. So it's not ruining the knife, it's just rounding your edge. So when you've done that, people then go put their knife away in the drawer, in the block, whichever, and then pull it out and use it again. What needs to happen here is that once you're done using it, you want to hone it. So honing is using either a pull-through honer, like this guy here. This is called the Mino Sharp. This is a 2-stage water bath honer. So this is in water here. And this is ceramic, and you've got a coarse and a fine. And what you do with this guy, and this is specifically meant for a Japanese angle, you would drop your Japanese knife in and just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then into your smooth, and then back and forth, and then clean your blade off, and then it's ready to go, and you put it away. That's as simple as you need to do before you put that away. You can always test your blade with a piece of paper, grab it from the heel, close pinch the paper, and just try your knife. See how it feels. What you'll do, you'll know the sharpness, and if you have any tiny little nicks or chips, you'll feel it as you pull down. So knife is sharp. So this guy here is a 3-stage. This has a sharpening stone in it, and then a 2-stage, exactly the same with this 2-stage honer. So it comes this way, but this is mostly perfect for everybody. We do free knife sharpening in store that most everybody knows. But what we want people to understand is that when you sharpen your knife too often, you're taking life off the knife. So we're happy to sharpen it for you. We'll do that whenever needed. But if you're doing that within 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, it's probably too soon. You're not honing well enough. You realistically could go a year or more. If you're not hammering down into your board, you're not scraping or cutting frozen bones or frozen food or things that are really, really strong and small and making microchips or chips into your blade, and you're just doing it nice and smoothly. You're using a nice rounded motion as you're cutting and not chopping down into your work surface. Your blade will go and go and go and go and go when you're dealing with a knife as high quality as like a Miyabi. So using a pull through is super simple. Works really, really well, lasts for a long time. So very, very happy with it, and you can do it every single time you use your knife. You can't over hone. So, you know, realistically, maybe once a week, but you could do it every single time. So that works well. Some people want to use a honing rod. Some people call them a sharpening rod. But as we talked about, this is honing and not sharpening, but still, it's all kind of called the same thing. So using this guy is very simple. Best to use it on a cloth on the counter. Put it at a nice natural angle with the whatever your brand of stone or rod is. Find your angle and just do each side. So people get very, very particular and concerned about doing it just at the right angle, the exact angle of bevel, which is important to get as close as possible, but you're never gonna get at the exact angle. This is not a mechanical process, right? This is freehand. Everybody does this freehand. So what we're trying to do is take this tiny little edge that is on here, that has gotten, you know, rounded or beat up or however, and we're just pushing down on each edge of that bevel to just smooth that to a point that everything has gotten to one single point again. So we're just kind of collecting the edge and pushing everything back up again. And as long as we do this smooth enough, and you do this to a point where you're not pushing overly hard, I'm not pushing in with my shoulder or my wrist even, I'm just naturally just dropping down, the blade is soft enough that it will just realign itself if you do this just naturally. So I'm not saying this is in a very exact way. It takes some practice. It feels kind of awkward at first. And this is not my first suggestion. My first suggestion is using a pull through. But for anybody that wants to use a rod, it just takes some practice. And you don't need to be overly concerned about doing it perfectly every time. As long as you can then test your knife afterwards and it feels like it's sharp, you've honed. You're good. So I would hone badly other than not honing because you're concerned about not doing it right. Because with practice and trial and error, you'll get it, right? So that is the difference between sharpening and honing. One thing that I wanted to touch base on is people that look at a stone and like, oh, I need to look after my knives, I want to get a stone. This is a MinoSharp 1000, 8000 stone. The stone sharpening is sharpening and not so much honing. You are honing when you're polishing at a 8000 grit. This is quite a process. It takes quite a lot of experience. You really need to understand what you're doing and maintain not only your knives, but also your stone. And it's something in which I only suggest for people that really want to invest their time also. So this is about a 30 to 40 minute process to sharpen a knife using a stone. So it's not for everybody. It's actually not for that many. So for the people that really want to make a hobby of it, it's there for you. But what we highly suggest is absolutely having something in the kitchen to hone with and then bring them to us when they need to be sharpened, and we'll sharpen them for you. So I hope that answers all your questions, and please reach out to us anything that you need.